listen to the laptop up there.
Playground there all the time.
Oh, okay,
Goes
great.
up to the window, she wants to see what's going on.
Bring her over today, we're open.
Pardon?
Bring her over during the day, we'll show us.
Well, you may see her mother and her grandmother and her. It's fun.
He told me it was all set up in
Okay.
Thomas. I know. No, this.
I would have been working on this.
So, why don't we give me the thing? No, it's just the cord. Yep.
Really out of the back row tonight. Right out on top of here.
Hey guys, and then if you want to, if you give me the presenter tool, and then you can take.
Our student reps are here,
Fob out.
so we'll. What's that?
Why?
That's what I'm gonna miss the most, man.
Hold on, it's not even on.
Maggie, that's what I'm gonna miss.
Tell me what's wrong with the screen that's on, because that's not what it's on my screen. There's nothing on here. But I guess, look, that's my screen right now.
Job description, I mean.
That's Orion, everybody.
Yeah, try next.
Here we go.
Where do you see F5?
Right here.
Ready?
F7 would be screen, duplicate screen. Try unplugging it.
Text me in.
It just said something frame lock.
I literally have no idea.
It just said frame lock. I don't understand why.
Look, then the whole presentation just. No, he's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Let me go down here for 1 second. Just so.
The shyest dude ever. What? Yeah, I am, but I don't fit in. Like from my childhood.
Is,
There's something super poetic about like I started as a student, I started as a professional, and I'm going back.
it's like frozen.
How's that? Is that
It's staying almost there. Sorry.
Call Justin Breakage. Hey, real quick, so we're here at the board meeting, and Maggie's, okay, oh, you're watching this, so what do I need to hit on her thing to get this presentation to come up, because it's, what she has on here is not what's projecting on the screen.
are you on the phone with Justin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where's that at? Oh, yeah, got it. Okay. Okay, so, PC screen only? Duplicate, duplicate?
I went up and asked her.
Okay, thank you, got it. All right, thanks, appreciate it, bye.
Oh, I thought that's what you meant.
Oh, not that,
No.
okay. All right,
You're
so,
amazing.
so no, it's Justin. So he said hit the Windows button, you hit the Windows button and P, and then it pops up the little side thing, you have to hit duplicate. So,
So, thank you.
get it.
All right, we're good, Mrs. Leonard, so we'll get the party started.
Okay, now we
When-
lost our chief.
It's like herding butterflies today. We have to start the meeting, so
Yes.
give us 2 minutes. We lost the superintendent. That way you guys can run it.
Okay. Ready?
No.
Have to go into Infinite.
I'm working on it, but like my computer's being.
All right.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting for Wednesday, September 18th. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Mrs. O'Day, happy birthday, and then roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Abdallah?
Here.
Mr. Azar? Mrs. Henderson?
Here.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Here.
Mrs. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Moran?
Here.
Mr. Robeson?
Here.
Mrs. Tierney?
Here.
Mr. Acker?
Here,
All present.
may I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
May I please have a motion to approve the minutes from the meetings of August 21st and September 4th?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Moran?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, are there any board reports for this evening? Any committee meetings? Okay, then the next would be our student representatives, Owen and Zia. Mr. McVetti, you get to lead us off.
I do. Thank you, guys.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, we're excited to be here. So, as usual, I'm going over the athletic reports. Recently, about 320 students attended our Fall Student Athlete Assembly, where we introduced our athletic department's visions of mission and the pillars of Comet Pride. The student athletes were very excited to learn of the pizza party incentive for the team with the highest GPA through the fall season. The first ever meeting of our Comets Leadership Council took place on Thursday, September 12th in room 227. Athletes had to be either invited or recommended by their coaches, and there were over 40 athletes invited to attend the first meeting. And the second meeting of the Comet Leadership Council will take place on October 3rd, where they will vote for officers. Our college recruitment and education night is scheduled for Thursday, October 17th. And at this event, the athletes will get to meet with different schools and coaches about continuing their athletic career, following high school. With the winter physical update, sponsored by our partners, the Lehigh Valley Health Network, will take place on Saturday, October 19th in the nurses' suite at the high school. And for the most up-to-date information, make sure to visit ahsdathletics.org. And now to the more interesting stuff, in my opinion. We're going to the team updates. Our football team is 2-1, coming off 2 straight wins, 42-0 against West Scranton and 30-13 against Dallas. The Comets football team has been on a roll and hopes to continue the dominance against Valley View, which sadly they lost, and North Pocono. I'm pretty sure that's tonight.
Friday.
Yep. And then this weekend, they play Delaware Valley, or that's next week, sorry. These numbers are a little out to date. They'll play Del Valley on 9/28, which is their senior day at the Pit. They are currently ranked number 1 in District 2. With field hockey, the team has struggled to get going, but despite the slow startup with some close losses, including an overtime loss on Tuesday, September 10th versus Honesdale. The girls hope to get things going with their upcoming games against Lake Lehman and Wyoming area. They are currently ranked number 7 in District 2. The girls cross country is off to a very strong start, 6-0 right now, and their team has continued their dominance from the last season into this, and being led by Anna Puchalowski and senior Reese Morgan. The boys cross country is 5-1, and they're also continuing their amazing last season into this one. And they're, like I said, they're a 5-1 record. The boys are being led by seniors J.T. Healy, George Sutton, and Hamza Mirza. The girls volleyball team is having a good year and is just coming off a win against Mountain View on September 10th. And their first ever game in the Abington Heights High School main gym was on September 9th. And although they came up short, losing three sets to North Pocono, the gym atmosphere was electric. The girls' tennis is currently 5-1, and they've been having a great year, starting off 5-0. On September 9th, they took on Scranton Prep and lost 5-0, but they have an abundance of matches coming up, and this includes multiple matches that took place at the Altoona Invite on September 13th, and they are currently ranked number 2 in District 2 and number 4 in their league, and their senior night was tonight against West Scranton. In girls golf, they are improving this year, and on September 11th, they shot their lowest score of the season with a 135 win over Blue Ridge. And on Monday, September 9th, the girls competed at pre-districts and qualified 3 golfers for the end-of-the-year District 2 tournament. Those golfers are Liz George, Kate Peters, and Brianna Moffett. They all qualified. The boys golf, they have had 2 losses on the season, and both are at the hands of rival Scranton Prep. On Tuesday, September 3rd, senior Robbie Lucas reached a milestone by setting a school record at Glen Oak Country Club, shooting a 29 on the front 9, which is 7 under par, and that's bananas. It's
That's why I
nuts.
shoot through 3 holes.
The girls soccer, the Comets have been on a roll this season, 3-1, with their only loss coming in overtime at Valley View. On September 11th, they shut out Wallenpaupack area 6-0, and Lilia Calvert and Lily Rossi each completed a hat trick during this match. The boys soccer is currently 3-2, coming off a big win at Valley View on Tuesday, September 10th, and the team is currently ranked 4th in the District 2 AAA Power Rankings. And so that was the athletic reports, and so taking over with the academic and high school report, this is the new junior board representative, Gia Vicino.
So, Zia, you have a tough act to follow.
I sure do. Well, good evening, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Gia Vicino, and I'm your new junior school board representative. Regarding academics, all classes have had a great start to the year. And in addition to this, our new CrossFit AH has kicked off with its partnership with CrossFit Vertex. This is a wonderful addition to our school, and we are super excited to see what it has in store for us. For our co-curriculars, freshman officer elections will be held at the end of the month. Also super excited to meet our new freshman officers. Our clubs and activities such as Student Council, Interact, Help Club, and many more have been hosting their very first meetings during Month Mod, and each one of them has had a great turnout. We'd also like to say congratulations to our senior Sarah Hoban, who is a semifinalist for the National Merit Scholarship. We would also like to introduce our junior leadership Lackawanna students who have been accepted into the Tomorrow's Leaders Today program. These students include Lauren Bartell, Lindsay Bartell, Grace Bennett, Kira Crowell, Timothy Fogley, Sona Hamanali, Andrew McDonald, Oliver Rorick, Kate Peters, Benjamin Reese, Madison Smith, Charles Stampian, and myself, Gianna Vicino. These students will enhance their leadership skills by participating in interactive teamwork sessions, and orientation for these students will be held on October 17th at Montage Mountain Resorts. Lastly, we had our back to school night, which was held last Thursday, September 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. Parents got to walk through their student schedules and got to go over this year's curriculum with each teacher. Those are all of my updates for this evening, and I am super excited to continue my reports for the rest of the year. Thank you so much.
See, thank you very much. We're very happy you're here and welcome. And we're excited that Mr. McVetti has a little bit of competition to push him a little bit.
On your toes.
Okay. Next would be our treasurer's report, please. Excuse me, superintendent's report, I apologize.
Yeah, we can have public comment if we want first.
You want to have public comment first? Sure. Is there anyone that wants to make public comment? Please come up. Let us know who you are. Okay, Mr.
All right.
McLean?
So without there being any public comment, I'm going to pass this over, the superintendent's report, to our wonderful group of elementary principals who will be discussing some of the data that they have as well as the goals they have for this upcoming year. Mr. Miliani, I believe that you're the host.
Somehow I got nominated to go first here. I'm not sure how that happened, but
I
don't know
I
if
can
it's the
tell
socks.
you. Yeah.
They wanted me to wear the pink suit that I wore on the first day of school, but I figured I'd have to come more formal to this. Thank you for having us here. We work super well as a cohesive team. Over the summer we meet consistently. We take a look at data, look at each other's data to kind of help us drive our vision collectively and then within our own buildings as well. So tonight, you're going to see some slides. There's similar format. Again, I get the chance to go first, so I can share about CSE. First, we'll share the kind of overarching district results, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into each building and our results and kind of like what we're doing collectively and some initiatives that we're continuing in the district, and then some new things with like, for example, I have 2 new staff this year in my building and how we're trying to leverage our people to really impact our students and keep our focus. I'm kind of taking something that was said a couple of meetings ago, Director Robeson, you said, let's not be reactive and try to be reflective, right? Like, so that's what, when you see something and you're like, oh, wow, look at that number, it's very easy to be reactive about it. And like, what needs to be changed? What's this? What's that? We need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Take a couple deep breaths and like our vision, maintain that focus and that clarity. And really the goal, if you look at our graduation rate here in Abington Heights, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The kids that are graduating from here, whether they're going into the workforce, going to Johnson School, picking up a trade, grabbing an associate's degree, a 4-year degree, and then beyond, they're prepared. They're successful. Dr. Schaefer did some research in that when he first came here, of seeing how kids progress and where they are, and how many kids end up dropping out that were Abington Heights graduates. So all of these things that we start off in the elementary doing of laying the foundation, it continues throughout. And I'm super glad to be part of that, and I'm glad to be leading off, I guess. So I'm batting first here. So the English language, you'll see the first couple of slides are just kind of the overall performance district-wide, starting from 2017 to 2024. You'll see that last year we did have a little bit of a dip total across the district of all of our 4th grade students, 6%, roughly 6.5%. One thing, I'm sure that you're aware of too, last year PDE did make some changes to students who did take the PSSAs as opposed to the alternative test. So we had some students taking the PSSAs this year who would traditionally have taken the alternative testing because of a change that the state made. We've also had some religious opt-outs as well as parent opt-outs as well, which impact us negatively, our scores because they're considered basic, whether they would have been advanced, or advanced proficient or not.
Below basic.
Or below basic, I'm sorry, below basic. Here's grade 4 broken down. You see that there was a 1% increase from last year. And then cohort. So this is where we can take a look and track the students by cohort and see how they perform each year as they move up into the middle school, which it's really small type, but I'm sure you have access to this report where you can
We're
bring
going
it.
to send it out.
I should have brought my cheaters with me.
Do you want mine?
Yes, no. So here's CSE. The goal last year for CSE, for K to 2, was we would increase to 80% students that would be in the low-risk category from a beginning percentage of right around 57%. And then taking a look at our 3rd and 4th grade combined average from 60%, and we would grow 3% to 63% advanced proficient. So you can see here for 3rd grade, we dipped 1.8%, and same thing in 4th grade for our ELA. Looking at all of this, and I put this in here and as well as the rest of the principles so you can kind of see like the snapshot. So when we do our universal screener, which is right now, we're in it right now, and we're Acadians this year, we're Ames Web last year. What we do is we administer this screener to all kindergarten through 4th grade students. We get a baseline, and then from there, we are able to then run our small groups and provide interventions for students and supports. So you could see up here, the goal was 80% in kindergarten. We started at right around 60. We grew, we ended at 71%. Didn't meet the 80% target, but we grew by 11%. 1st grade, same thing. We started at the beginning of the year, 40% students that were in the low risk category to 65% by the end of the year, which is 25% growth. Again, did not meet that goal of the 80% total. And 2nd grade, same thing, we did meet the goal here. We started off with 71% to 86%. And I put the 3rd and 4th grade in there because we are transitioning, and on the next slide you'll see that, to Acadians this year. So there are their Ames Web scores at end of year, which is 84% and 86.6%. It doesn't directly align to how they perform on the PSSAs. If you take a look at the comparison that's right underneath. So if you look at our 3rd grade, they went from 63.6 to 64.5%. And our 4th grade went from 55.7 to 56.3 with a little bit of a drop there. So looking at, that screener, and end of the year, you would think that there would be more of alignment. So this year we're switched to Acadians. We're in it right now. We're hoping that it'll give us, and we feel that it'll give us a better way to help guide our teachers in their instruction, as well as support students as well, in both math and ELA as well. I already talked about, I got ahead of myself, which is a good thing because I like to talk. So as you can see up here, we talked about the Acadians. We're doing that right now. Also a change that's happening in 2026 is that the PSSAs will be fully online. So as a team, we decided this year, we need to do something now to get our kids those skills that they need to take the test on the computer. So the state has something called classroom diagnostic tools that we're using. They've been around for a while, but it's a computer-based PSSA-aligned diagnostic tool which digs deeper, and we can look at the reporting categories and see, is it a cohort of kids that are struggling with text-dependent analysis, and that's going to be a common theme when my colleagues come up here as well, TDAs, we can do better with that. So we're going to be implementing that this year, 3rd grade and 4th grade, and then we're going to be, kids in 3rd grade will be taking the PSSAs online this year, figuring that next year, because this is a baseline year, we look at 3rd grade as a baseline year, next year they will have 1 year under their belt and be better prepared, and hopefully maybe we'll even see improvement because they're used to the test format and all the tools that they have access to via computer, because it's going to be different than the paper and pencil version that they usually take. And then lastly, again, always continued focus on literacy and instruction specific to students, hitting students where they're at, and keeping that vision of excellence is the standard, and students are our focus. So we're really kind of reimagining our goals this year, and really going to dig a little bit deeper and really see, because we have a lot of great things that are going on. We're adding in some other things, and we'll get to it when we talk about math, but other ways in diagnostics for us to really see where kids are at and provide the supports that they need. And our numbers, I do believe that they're strong, even though that we didn't make our goals and we showed a little bit of regression, but it's not indicative of the hard work of our school board, our students, our families who are highly engaged. And whenever I have a meeting with a parent, what can we do to help our child? Whether it's, can you send some extra materials home? What can I do over the summer? Can you recommend a tutor for us? So we can provide some extra support. So there's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. Some things that we can't control is like that day for that student, we could try to control the test environment the best that we can, and help them out and release test anxiety. But, you know, sometimes we're gonna control what we can control and then keep our eye on the prize, which is, you know, graduating students that are gonna be productive citizens, engaged, and represent Abington Heights in our mission. So I'm sorry. Are you guys good now? I'll let these guys, I think it's Bridget next. And then we have Matt to go through too, so I promise I won't talk as long then because I said most of the stuff that I needed to say now.
Hello, everyone. I promise I won't talk as long as Mr. Miliani.
I just leaned over to Dr. Schaefer and I said, we found somebody with more words.
I just say I'm loquacious.
Well, I'm Bridget Fromfolker, the principal of Newton Ransom Elementary. Pleased to be here tonight to celebrate our successes and reflect on things that, you know, there's always room for improvement at every, in our practice. One of the things that we don't see on slides tonight that I think is really important, and I speak for, hopefully will speak for my colleagues as well, is that it's not just about the math and literacy, it's also about the climate and the culture of the schools that we build, which we do that every day, all day long. So that is really a critical piece of our work, is setting that, you know, environment, a positive and supportive culture for our students, and great relationships with our families. But as far as our ELA goals for Newton Ransom, we, you know, focus on literacy in our K-2. We were looking at our benchmark that we used last year, which was AIMSweb, and our goal was, you know, that we met to 80%. I'll get to the AIMSweb data because we have the PSSA data in front of us. And also for our PSSA, you know, that we would increase up to 72.5%. So we look at our grade 3 2024 ELA data and our grade 4 2024 ELA data, and obviously we have a dip in 3rd grade and we have a great increase in 4th grade, which is really exciting. I think it is important that one cohort slide is these are different students year to year that we're looking at on this slide. So, you know, our 3rd graders in 2023 were not the same students that we're testing in 3rd grade, obviously, in 2024. So that's important to note there. So that is our PSSA data for Newton Ransom. The specific goal that we were working on last year for literacy was that K-2 increasing to 80% for our screener, and also our PSSA by 3%, as I mentioned. For our AIMSweb Plus for K and 1, as an area of reflection and an area to look forward as we refine our practice and support our students, is that K and 1 were the 2 goals that we did not meet as far as our growth, but there was, as far as our target, I should say, but there was a 9.3% growth from beginning of the year to the end of the year. The 1st grade, although we did not meet the specific goal, there was a 15.5% growth. In 2nd grade, we did meet that goal. We ended at 86%, and there was a 23.2% growth. For our goal for the PSSAs for both 3rd and 4th, we did actually meet those goals for ELA. So as we reflect on the ELA, you know, and some of this is going to be repetitive in the sense that we are a cohesive team at the elementary level, and we really do try to work together. We try to drill down in our building as far as what do our specific students need as far as remediation and enrichment. But, you know, always we have our mind that we are 4 schools in the same district, and we're working together to make sure that our students are having the same experience academically, and as far as the climate and culture of our schools. So this year, because Mr. Miliani had mentioned there's kind of a disconnect between the screener we used with AIMSweb to the PSSA results. So this year we're transitioning to a new screener benchmark, which is Acadians. So that is, we're hoping that will give us more data, a better, more accurate data representation for our students concerning literacy. And we're really, at Newton Ransom, focusing in on those K-1 as far as like our early literacy, our youngest students coming in. You know, we want to make sure that we're meeting the individual needs of those students. We did add the classroom diagnostic tools in grades 3 and 4. We're currently working through data collection in the last week or so, and we're still this year because we have some new assessments that we're administering. So, you know, we're still in the data collection process, so we're not finalized with our goals yet, because we really need to understand where the kids are when they're coming into us and how we're starting off the year. And we're also looking at that cohort tracking. You know, we want to look at our third graders this year and how did they perform in fourth grade last year, and our fourth graders, and so on. It is important to look at how our kids are achieving year to year, how our third graders are achieving, how our fourth graders are achieving, but it's really important to track those kids, those students from year to year. Yes, there are some changes in who qualifies to take certain assessments, but overall, we don't want those students to be performing we want them to be improving their performance from year to year. To continue, and we want to continue with literacy instruction specific to our student needs and strengths. At Newton Ransom, I could say that we really work diligently to meet the needs of those individual students. We are a true team when we do that. I know we all are in our own individual buildings. They'll speak for that. But our goal is always with literacy to improve our instruction, to improve the supports that are specific to students, and also to look at our writing. Like in the older grades with the PSSA, we noticed that we really need to focus on a more structured writing approach, but we're always looking to improve our practice. And I think we're at South Abington. So Mrs. Coyne.
I brought my cheaters, if you want to borrow them. I realized I could pull it up on my phone and probably see it better than trying to look from this distance, but thank you for having us this evening. I will echo the same sentiments. We are completely a cohesive team, and we've been tied, the four of us, together in our administrative career well before we came to Abington Heights. So not only do we get along, but we all have the same vision. We always want what's best, not just for our students, but faculty and staff as well, and support them in the best way possible. So I won't read my goals from this slide or point out my goals from this slide because it's so tiny. The next slide, they are larger. But I will point out that as we look at the PSSA achievement in third grade and in fourth grade, yes, there was a decrease. But again, as Dr. Fraunfelker mentioned and as Mr. Miliani mentioned, it's a different cohort of students. So when I was thinking about my goals, I initially thought, well, let's look at how the performance has been in the past. I wasn't really focusing on the cohort aspect. So I did set lofty goals. I am that way. I figured if we raise the bar even higher, we will get to where we need to be. And it may take time, so maybe not with this particular group of students, but in the future, we will have that growth and that achievement. So we did decrease by 2.9% in third grade and 4.6% in fourth grade. As I said, my goals were lofty. I'll jump to PSSA first, since we were just reflecting on that data. I thought that perhaps it was an anomaly that we had decreased. So I wanted our third graders to increase their performance to 72% and fourth grade to 76.6%. That's where that lofty achievement goal came into play. I did think that perhaps it was an anomaly, and now we have a different group of students. And then I realized as we were progressing through the year, we had to make some changes with supports. So our Ames Web data is listed. It's interesting, you'll see first grade across all four buildings didn't meet our growth goals for Ames Web, which is very telling. You know, what do we need to do now to help support our kindergarten students going into first grade, and then our first grade students as they transition through the school year and make it to second grade? We did meet our goal for kindergarten Ames Web achievement as well as second grade Ames Web achievement. And then we get to PSSA. So it's not truly reflective of what the students do on a daily basis, what our faculty and staff do on a daily basis in terms of the hard work. And I don't like to focus on a test, but the data comes from an assessment. So what can we do to expose students to the format of the test, the types of questions they'll be asked? Certainly not ever teaching to the test. We teach to standards. But I think it would be a disservice if we didn't provide exposure to students, which is why I'm glad we are moving to exposure through CDT testing. So as my colleagues mentioned, we looked at the assessments that we currently were using. Throughout the summer, we thought, what are different ways to find some diagnostic information? CDT is truly a great way to find information for our third and fourth grade students, but what can we do for kindergarten, first, and second grade as well? So we moved to Acadience. We have a different approach with our benchmarking. We are seeing that we're getting some different data in terms of the groupings of students with our Acadience thus far versus what we saw with Ames Web at this point for our fall benchmark, which could be very great for us to be able to then plan and move forward and then compare in the past what have we done to meet needs. I can speak for South Abington as we progressed through last year, our small group structure in terms of enrichment and intervention changed. We were running 30-minute sessions. We had to become creative. We saw that there was a greater need that arose, or that had been arising, so we would split that 30 minutes, 15 minutes for some students, 30 minutes for others. So for example, maybe we were doing foundational skills for kindergarten, first, and second grade students in that first 15 minutes with our reading specialist, but then they needed some support with reading fluency. They needed some support with reading comprehension. So then we would fold in a second layer of students for a comprehension or reading fluency piece for their instruction with the reading specialist. We saw the same with third and fourth grade. We still had some needs with our foundational skills for some students, so we would focus on the same thing. Foundational skills for first 15 minutes, work on comprehension the second 15 minutes. Saw that there was a need in writing as we went through the PSSA data, our TDAs, our text-dependent analysis for fourth grade. While we have a lot of exposure to writing and wit and wisdom, the state has a different expectation. So now how can we meet that expectation while still providing students with daily exposure to writing? So as a team, we have created resources for our faculty and staff with regard to state expectations. So now they know what our standards are, and now they know how we can deliver through using wit and wisdom, and then on top of that, practice with the state expectations for our TDA, for our ELA students, or while they're in ELA, excuse me. We really want to focus on that cohort tracking. It is comparing apples to oranges when you look at those percentages at the end of each year. But if we're going to really dig down and see where the needs are, we have to look at how students performed the year before compared to how they performed that following school year at the end of the year. Was there a plateau? Was there regression? Was there an increase in their achievement? So we're keeping our eye on all of those pieces. We're using things like the letters spelling screener to find needs for students. We are doing the core phonics screener with our reading specialists. So we have a lot of options to be able to pull together. We're doing grade level meetings. We're doing data meetings. We're always communicating, and I think that's the key. Share the data, talk about the data. I'm not in the classroom every day and teaching, so I truly value what our faculty and staff can share with regard to their strengths, with regard to where they may need some professional development, and Dr. Vitale is great with providing that support as well. So we are going to continue to focus on literacy. I will wrap it up now so that we can move on to Waverly, but I really want to point out students work so hard every day, and faculty and staff are always looking to do better and to be better, and it's a great place to be here in Abington Heights because we always know that the bar is set very high.
There's nothing left to say, is there? Heard it all. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys tonight, and I'd like to start off by, while we have the data in front of us and it's not exactly what we had hoped for, I have no disappointment in last year because my faculty, staff, students, and families worked their butts off, and they did and met every expectation that was presented to them. And as Dr. Fraunfelker pointed out, is that culture and that climate and that family that we have at Waverly really, to me, as a parent in this district and as an administrator in this district, is so important. We truly do work together. You heard us all say that, but we also do that at Waverly. My faculty and staff and I sit down on a regular basis daily talking about students, talking about data, talking about supports, and talking to parents. And I see many faces out here, and a lot of you have children in this district, and I know you feel that same way, that how important that is. So while it's important for us to drill down on our data, and drill down we did, we've went through every anchor, every ounce of growth, every standard, to find out, are we missing anything? Where do we need to improve? What more do we need to reflect on? And we continue to do that. This is our data for Waverly in third grade ELA. We had a drop in our ELA scores, but as everyone has pointed out, it's different students. This is not the cohort that we're looking at. And our fourth grade as well at 72.6% proficient and 74.2 in third grade. The goals are better to see on this page. So I'll start with the PSA. Since we just talked about that, it was my hope that we would grow by 3% as an average with third and fourth grade. We did not meet that goal. We ended up at, as you can see there, at 73.3%. But I'm still, as I stated, I'm very proud of the work that all of our students did and how hard they all worked. We can't forget that today's students have significant needs. The world has really changed. We continue to fight COVID.
the effects of lack of preschooling, early childhood education. We're still seeing that. And we're really working hard to help our students and support them and close those gaps that they're coming to us with. I am proud, though, if you look at our Ames Web Plus scores, our third grade, 88.7% of the students, as reported by our Ames Web score, were at or above the benchmark. And in fourth grade, 97.3%. And that's a 20.6% growth from where they started in the beginning of the year. As we stated, we found there's a gap that's not correlating to our PSSAs. We moved now to a new universal screener, but as well as the diagnostic screener, which will give us more information. And another bit of information that we haven't talked about, because it's not available yet, is our PVAS data, which is individual growth of students. And to me, as a mom, as an administrator, that's important. I want to see my child grow. Every child has their own potential, and that you can't judge every child the same. So seeing that individual growth in our students is very important. Unfortunately, the state doesn't release that until October usually, so we'll wait for that to come out. We will dig into that. All of our teachers use it daily. We look at every individual report. We divide our students into skill-based groups to help support them and try to help them close any gaps, and also enrich our students who are performing high performers. We're trying to get as much as we can out of those students and bring them to their growth potential. Our kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, we saw significant growth in our kids. My kindergarten grew 26.9%. First grade, we didn't meet our goal. We had 15.4% growth. We had staffing, we had long-term subs in and so forth, who did an excellent job. But they weren't, they haven't been around and they don't have all the knowledge that we have, which brings us to the wonderful people that work at Waverly. We run multiple book clubs, multiple book studies. We're currently running 2 studies about structured literacy. It's all voluntary. They do it on their own time. They work together. My math specialists and reading specialists are working, mentoring students after school on their own time. Teachers meet willingly. They meet together as groups. We cannot ask for more from our staff. Everybody is doing, and they love their kids. They're working so hard for them. Our second grade, who I lost 2 this year, who were wonderful, but they worked their butts off. They were 92.4% proficient, according to Ames Web, with a 21.2% growth last year. So we're on the right track. We don't quit. We will continue to dig into our data, and we will continue to do what's best for our students. They are our focus. Okay, I think we're going to math, right, Mr. Miliani?
And then we have science too.
We're just going to run through it.
So again, I'm actually going to go to the next slide. You can see, so here's a third grade breakdown of all students in Abington Heights this year. There was an 8% decrease for third grade students across the district, and almost a 2.5% increase for math across the district. Last year, as you know, we partnered with OGAP, Ongoing Assessment Group, and they've been coming in and providing professional development for our teachers to help build their toolkits to better help our students where the rubber meets the road. We'll continue with that again this year, which I'm super excited about. And I can speak specifically to Clark Summit Elementary. I know our kindergarten teachers were super excited. Our growth this year, at the end of the year in Ames Web, due to the fact we changed a little bit of our format, given that it's a half-day program. We wanted to make sure that we were maximizing our time with our kiddos with the resources and the knowledge that we had from OGAP and our trainings, which really made a huge difference. You can see our performance here. Again, I did not meet the goal for CSE. As everyone has reiterated, our teachers, they work super hard, our families, our students. We have a great faculty and staff and a great culture here in Abington Heights School District and at all of our schools. You can see here again, there's definitely growth, K-2 across the board. You can see that we did meet for each of our categories, K-2. We're above that 80% target that we set last year. You can see in third and fourth grade that we're well above the 80% as well. And then again, I included that just so you can kind of, highlight, our change and the need for change, which is a good thing, to Acadians to better help us understand where our kiddos are at and better, meet their needs. You could see that we didn't make it. We had a pretty significant drop. Again, different cohort of students in third grade, but that's their benchmark. So we'll hope in fourth grade this year that we see that 61.7%, a definite increase for our fourth graders this year. They're our current fourth graders. And then you'll see that we actually went up 4% in our fourth grade, that fourth grade cohort, who will now be fifth grade students this year at the middle school. Again, the ongoing assessment project, we're continuing with that. We pumped the brakes on maybe getting a new program when we were rewriting the curriculum. I think it was an amazing move to invest in our people and build their tools in their toolkit. And it's been tremendous. I've seen a lot of benefit from that, opening up dialogue and discussions and talking mathematical and why the language is so precise, and understanding where kids are at by looking at where the errors that they're making, super important. And then responding to that, not being reactive, but being responsive and reflective. Again, we talked about the transition. I'm not reiterating that, skipping over CDTs you already know about. We're hoping it'll better help us drive our instruction in the classroom and with our small groups. And there's some other things that we're doing, like the primary numbers and operations screeners, another thing that we're layering in for some of our students who may not be low risk. They may be moderate risk. They kind of dig down deeper and really see where we can hit them and get our best bet areas where we can really see their growth. Again, I'll pass it off to Dr. Fraunfelker.
Unknown caller.
Quickly. Is that my timer? Did I go over the 3 minutes allotted at the meeting?
Well.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so for our Newton Ransom, I'll go through the goals, but that's our PSSA data for math. Although there was a reduction in third grade last year, we still had 70.3% proficient and advanced, and our grade 4 had a huge increase up to 25%. Again, different cohorts of kids, but we are really looking at approaching mathematics in a different manner, more individualized, more supportive of students, and trying to fill those skill deficits early with constant support. That's how we're really making progress with math. As far as our specific goals last year, for the K-2 students, we looked at our Ames Web screener, our benchmark. We did meet in K1-2, we did meet the targeted goal. We had a 39.1% growth in math in kindergarten, a 34.7% in first grade and in second, and we did meet the overall increase for PSSA growth. So, we don't want to continue to be redundant, but we heard a lot about new assessments and different data. Right now we're collecting data, we're analyzing data. The main focus always with literacy and math is really to support each student where it's necessary, right? So it's hard to say exactly what our blueprint is because the blueprint is different for every single child essentially, and that's how we approach it at the elementary level. So I do think it's important to note that I'm very proud of the faculty and staff and students at Newton Ransom. We have wonderful families with wonderful kids, wonderful teachers and staff, and really their hard work every day really provides an excellent educational experience for the kids at Newton. And I think we could all stand up here and say, Newton Ransom's the place to be, right? We could all say that about all of our individual schools. But really, truly, our faculty and staff are working really hard. Our kids are showing growth. Even if we have a dip in ELA or in literacy or math, we just take that as more information and how do we better approach and how do we help our kids that we have in front of us. So we thank you for listening. So I'm going to pass it on because you're probably sick of hearing from us right now.
I did say most of what I wanted to say, so I will be brief. We did have a decrease in our third grade achievement, different cohort of students, by 7.3%, and we did have a slight decrease with our fourth grade students, 4.9%. We met all of our goals for our Ames Web data, which was great. So then again, we're just going to analyze and see what we can do to help support better results when they are taking a state test, because again, that sometimes is the greater focus than their daily work, growth, and achievement that we see when they come to school. I do want to just mention the profound impact that OGAP has had. Yes, we focused on math, and we will continue. We're doing lesson studies this year. The facilitators are coming in, and we're actually going into classrooms, and they're going to work with us, designing lessons, coaching our teachers. We spent a lot of time last year analyzing student work, sorting their work, seeing where they lie on the progression, how can we help them get to the higher part of the progression, and what can we do. And as my colleagues and I spoke over the summer, we kind of said the OGAP approach, which is really looking at your assessment, can apply to any content area. So we want to do that same thing when it comes to writing. I neglected to mention that earlier. We want students share their math work as we work through OGAP tasks. We want them to share their writing. We want them to do peer editing. We want them to give feedback. We saw so much growth with the tasks that they had for OGAP with their math tasks from the start of the year to the end of the year that it helped us to see how can we better provide instruction, but then how can we help students better communicate what they have learned. So there are a lot of great things happening. I will let Mrs. Leonard wrap it up for us, but I think of all of the buildings, the elementary side is always the best side. I like it a lot better, I'm just saying. We do. Okay, Waverly Math, PSSAs. Third grade had excellent results. They worked really hard. We ended up at 80.6%, which was an increase of 4.9%. Yet in fourth grade, we had some struggles still, so we were at 68.5%, which was a decrease of 7.8%. Our we met all of our Ames Web goals, which was to have 80% of our students in the low-risk group. We saw some significant growth. First grade had 22.6% growth on Ames Web. Second grade was 16.6. Third and fourth grade both showed growth, yet we didn't meet our goal for PSSA. I have to reiterate, OGAP is fabulous. I learned so much as a language person. Puedo hablar español. Si alguien quisiera, yo puedo hacer matemáticas en español también. That's what I taught. So sitting in math and really learning the progression and kind of sitting with my fourth and the fifth grade teachers and being that kid, I have no idea what I'm doing because I never taught it. It's amazing what I learned and to see what the teachers who had all this knowledge, what they continued with and did in their classroom. So it was really, really worth it. So thank you for supporting that. And we are so excited to continue again this year. I also get to do science, another subject that is so in my wheelhouse.
Do you want me to take it for you?
It's up to you, Dr. Vitale.
I feel like you guys have been put on the spot for a half an hour. I feel badly for you.
All right, you're on, Dr. Vitale. Thank you, guys.
So, as you know, we really worked on science last year on writing the curriculum. The resources that our students were using was from the 90s. So this year we have more updated resources and we're aligned. Our science scores are always incredibly impressive. So although there's a decrease, having 85% or more of your population proficient or advanced is incredibly exciting. Just so you know and kind of put it in the back of your head that next year, this school year, science moves to fifth grade. So sadly, this is the last time that elementary principals are going to have to deal with the science PSSA or the chart. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you. I really want to give a shout out to our elementary principals. And I know it was a half an hour, and I know they threw a lot of numbers at you, and it was a lot of information. But I really think what they've done here is show you, one, they just have a culture of data and making sure that they're supporting students. But also, two, they've shown you their dedication, their commitment, and truly their love for what they do and making sure students get exactly what they need. So principals, thank you for your time. I know it was a lot of work to put together. Board, thank you for listening and kind of indulging us as they went down their reflection road. Thank you.
Questions? Mrs. Tierney?
I first want to, again, thank all of you. It was just an incredible, excuse my voice, I was screaming a lot at my meet. But thank you for your dedication. My questions are to our superintendent and assistant superintendent. When I look at these numbers and see that not all the goals were met, as a school board director, I want to make sure that me as a director am giving the support that the district needs to give our administrators the needs to give their teachers for our students to meet their goals. I'm hearing a lot of changes in assessments. We have a new assessment change. We're going to be delivering a new way to teach the kids how to take the test. We have a brand new curriculum. There's a lot of news, a lot of new things being thrown at our administrators to educate their teachers. as a school board director, I want to make sure that I'm supporting a more of a positive. When I first looked at this, our goals weren't met. It sounds like our teachers are working incredibly hard, but we're not targeting what the needs are for the individual kids to be able to get their goals met. And it's no reflection on the hard work that everyone's doing. It sounds like everyone is incredibly working overtime on this. Are we introducing too many new things at the same time, maybe is my question. And are we as board directors supporting enough? Thank you.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and I will try to answer it. So although we've written new curriculum, it's not new. Teachers were always expected to teach the standards, and the standards have not changed. What we did was really just codify what we did. So we just put on paper what they should have been doing all along. We didn't change our mathematics program, and we didn't change our ELA program in the last several years. So that's actually not new for them. The reason we're changing assessments really is because what we're seeing from our benchmarks is not an indicator of proficiency on the PSSAs. So it was showing us that there's still gaps that we don't know exist. So students were coming up as well above proficiency on our Ames Web benchmarking, but then coming up not proficient on PSSAs. So it really wasn't an indicator, so we didn't know where to intervene because we assumed the student was meeting or exceeding the standards. So what we did was we spent honestly 2 years looking at different benchmarks, and we finalized on Acadians. When the governor came out last spring and said that all assessments will be online, we're concerned about it because we're expecting a dip. So we said, okay, how do we support our students in this transition? So as Mr. Emiliani said, we are making sure that all of our third grade students take the PSSA online. So this year is optional. All third grade is taking it online because it's all they'll ever know. So like, we're not going to start paper pencil, they're only going to know that. We're introducing the CDTs, which is a diagnostic assessment, and that has 2 prongs added. The first prong truly is to have a diagnostic assessment. So it'll dig in more, it is based on the standards, and it'll tell us how every student is performing on every single standard. So then we can more in-depth intervene and have better strategic intervention programs for each student. In alignment with that, Linkage is really helping us look at kind of the whole child with that data. The other point of the CDT, honestly, is to give our students repetition on how to take an online assessment. Because I do not want the PSSAs to be an indicator of how well our students can type, how well our students can navigate. It needs to be an indicator of content. So we're trying to give them experience and exposure, as well as teaching them typing, by the way, because we're going to be doing that shortly, so that, again, they're able to focus on the content, not all of those other skills that go along with an online assessment. So I could talk to you about this for 3 more hours, but I think Mr. Abdallah might cry.
I mean, I can. Can someone switch spots? No. On that note.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes,
Thank
first of
you,
all,
Maggie.
thank you so much. You did a great job, and I heard a couple of themes that I just wanted to point out. One is, I agree with you, you're definitely a cohesive unit. And, you know, when we were supportive of quantitative results and data, and I'm sure you went through a lot of it, I think it started with Chris when he came in, or Superintendent Schaefer, when he came in and said, you know, here are the goals. And I looked at it and I was just amazed that he quantified what improvement meant. What did it look like in terms of the numbers? And that's what you did. And I think I'm not so worried about, you know, numbers going down or not met. I know it's pretty painful to maybe say that out loud, but I think it was Mrs. Coyne who mentioned lofty goals a few times. There's a lot of goals. There's Ames Web, there's PSSAs, there's individual, there's things set by the administration here. And you did it. And what it does is it provides feedback for what areas to look into. And I think that's more valuable than setting cupcake goals, meeting them, and say everything's good. Because in that, you know, it's easy to point out the goals that weren't met, but I saw a lot of things that were not only met, but like blown past. So that feedback allows, I think, people to look at, well, what did we do? What happened there? Was it the cohort? Was it the environment? What was it? Was it the curriculum? So I give credit to you because it takes a lot to crunch the numbers and come up here and show some data that, you know, we're not used to seeing, but I think it's a reflective of how tough we're measuring ourselves. I really do. And I also think, to Mrs. Tierney, to your point, you know, I always say this to Justin when we talk about technology. I just do a checkpoint and say, are we trying to do too much all at once? Because it's a very good question. It is. And it's good to take a time out to ask that. Because there is maybe, perhaps, assessment fatigue. And there's a lot of changes that we don't control either. The environment, the state, you know, everything like that. And there's a lot going on, you know, with our committees. A lot of technology going on, a lot of finance stuff, a lot of curriculum, right? A lot of things with our different facilities. So I think it's a lot to unpack. You said it, a lot to unpack with this. And it did take a lot of time, but I'm very glad that you did it. I also think this group has the psychological safety to look at areas that we're not doing well in and try things. You know, I rather look at some of this and say, look, it's not working. To have the courage and say this, I'm not saying there's a particular area that's the case, but I get the sense that you as a group are doing that. So I appreciate that, because this could be an easier, softer way, but is that what we really want? So I think taking a hard look at this stuff quantitatively is awesome. So thank you.
Mrs. Henderson.
I just wanted to thank our four principals. I love, you know, how collaborative and cohesive you work together. It's clear how dedicated you are to our district, how much you care about your students and families. So I applaud your hard work. I know sometimes when you see, you know, get caught up on the numbers, and if the numbers weren't what you thought they were going to be, I said, but I think, you know, if we're being reflective and not reactive, and we're really taking a minute to think, you know, and to what Dr. Fromfelker said about early literacy, kindergarten and first grade. If you're thinking about it, Mrs. Leonard, I just made you a doctor, Mrs. Leonard mentioned COVID. Like, the fourth graders that sat for the PSSA last year, they were in kindergarten. I think that's important to remember. They were in first grade, whole hybrid year of first grade, when we were supposed to be building those early literacy skills. So I think it's important that, you know, we can never quantify how COVID is impacting our kids, but, you know, they see these kids every single day, and there are remarkable differences, different levels of development. So I think it's important, you know, if we're looking at the scores of third and fourth graders, you have to look at where they were when they were supposed to be sitting in school every single day. So, you know, again, you see those numbers and you miss the target, but there's only so much you can do, and I think you guys are doing an amazing job, and, you know, I really appreciate everything that you and your staffs are doing, so thank you.
Other comments? Dr. Schaefer, any comments?
Is everybody? No, what I would have to say, because I don't want to, you know, repeat anything that's already been said, is this opportunity, because you know, one of the things that we've discussed is there's continuity in some of the numbers. So one of the things we look at as our analysis is like these patterns, and it's a great practice, and it's a must do every year to reflect on every single move that you make as a leader and as a teacher. And we talk about the instructional core, and we work through that by visiting schools. And what I mean by that is, first of all, what we take a look at is, are our kids engaged around a task that's consistent with the learning expectation? And the learning expectations, as Maggie stated, they're not secret. They remain pretty static. However, we have to make sure that those classroom tasks that our kids are engaged in are pushing them at those levels. So it's not just simple rote memorization or recounting something, right? We have to make sure that our students are able to not only that synthesize that information, but to like evaluate it in a way that would let us know as educators that you truly understand it. You've you've made meaning in your own world, right? Your own context, and you were able to write about or verbally articulate that particular concept or skill. And that means if that's going to happen, that we have to take a look at, and you saw everybody talk about OGAP, right? This is an ongoing assessment program, which we talked about. And that's really important because that speaks to teacher knowledge and skills. So what they didn't say, and what you can infer from what they said, is we are really pushing our teachers and administrators to look at mathematics perhaps in some different ways. And that way is through, say, error analysis, right? Not looking at what's right, but looking at those patterns that are emerging and some of the mistakes that they're making, right? As many of you did when you work with your kids and you see them doing something. I almost said long division, I don't even know. But like, hey, no, you carried that over there, or you wrote that one wrong, or you multiplied that when you should have subtracted, right? Like seeing, like, say, where that order of operations is wrong, and understanding, like, hey, really, this isn't an order of operations issue. I think if we can pinpoint that, then this issue kind of goes away. So all in all, I think that it's a great opportunity for our staff and leaders to practice, and I'm very optimistic of it, because again, I talked to our staff and our leaders in the beginning of the year, and I said that we are building cathedrals, and everybody has a piece of that puzzle. And we are but the foundation, because the kids, we launch them off, but that foundation has to be strong. And I'm very optimistic, because when I take a look at our elementary in front of us, I also take a look at that big picture. And it's not a straight line that's upwardly mobile, right? There's a lot of zigs and zags in that line. And I'm very pleased and have high expectations when our kids graduate and we see some of these numbers that may be reflected in assessment. But when I see those numbers and we're talking about the high school, I know everything that went into it. And then finally, I've posted and talked about, so if you're not following me on Instagram or Facebook, please do. It's at Dr. Chris Schaefer. Be like everybody else, follow me. It's a gratuitous plug. But what I've mentioned in there is from a researcher at Penn, at Adam Grant, and I talk about character over cognition, and certainly we all need that cognitive strength. However, time after time, I'm showing examples of the character of our kids, and that's where the hidden potential is. So,
Great, thank you very much. Thank you all. Really, very nice job, and also to my fellow board members, nice comments. Very well said. Okay, with that,
They can go to the back row again.
pardon?
You can just let them go to the back row.
you need some more. That's right.
All right, can we please have the treasurer's report?
Yes, you can. We began the month with a cash balance of $13,901,046.32. We took in $9,709,306.54 in revenues. Our net disbursements for the month were $7,114,501.91 for a cash balance available of $16,495,850.95. A reminder that the treasurer's report is available online on board docs.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Ackert asks that the board consider a motion to approve
Go.
the personnel report as
I
presented.
was going to say about approving the treasurer's.
Woo! I was in a hurry, I'm sorry.
Can we have a motion to approve the
tipped my
treasurer's
hand.
report?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hillebrand,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker. I ask the board to consider a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hildebrand,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdella.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker, I ask the board consider a motion to approve the September 2024 volunteer list.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdella.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker, because I am not superstitious, I am not going to congratulate Dr. Vitale on the anticipated, I'm not even saying it. I said I'm not going to, congratulate you on the anticipated superintendentship at East Stroudsburg. And that this motion has nothing to do with that. We just put it up quite fortuitously. So at this time, Mr. Acker, I would ask that the board consider a motion to approve the assistant superintendent job description.
So moved.
So moved.
Just in case. Oh,
On the motion.
nobody said.
Pretty extensive job description. Did he add some things, Mrs. Vitale, since?
Did he add things? No, I think he might have removed.
I think you definitely removed something.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdella.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Thank you. Obviously, we're not talking about anything that might happen, Dr. Vitale, but if it did happen, I think I'd speak for the whole board to say that's a wonderful.
Are you gonna say yes, or you're just gonna have a conversation?
Yes.
9-0.
We better make sure that was 9-0, right? Like I got an 8-1 on that. Mr. Acker, asks the board approve the Scranton School District Agreement for Center-Based Emotional Support for Student 41A, along with the Scranton School District Agreement for AEDY Program for Student 42A.
So moved.
Second. On the motion? All in favor? Roll call, please.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdella.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Acker, asks the board consider a motion to approve the pupil transportation agreement between Abington Heights School District and H.E. Rohr LLC for the 24-25 through 26-27 school year with the option to extend for 2 additional school years.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdella.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Just as a clarification before I read this, the following meal pricing for the district has not changed. We're required to put it up for vote, so we haven't changed this in quite a long time. So at this point, I would ask the board to consider a motion to approve the Abington Heights School District meal pricing as follows. Breakfast is free, elementary lunch $2.25, middle high school lunch $2.40, adult breakfast $1.75, and adult lunch $4.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I have a question. Has there been a survey recently on the cafeteria food and the meals? Or
No, I mean, no, I can't speak for the students, but I enjoy it.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
We did one last year. We surveyed. We put a survey out, remember, last year? It went out.
Yes, now I do.
Was it favorable? Or is it just me?
Yes. She said, did you hear what she said? They met at the high school with students. We do an advisory board because we have a food service management company. We have to have an advisory board, so we meet with students at every school to try and see what might fit and not fit, so
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. O'Day.
it's my job.
That's right, that's her title.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Moran.
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Mr. Ackert, ask the board consider a motion to approve the Pennsylvania State University Affiliation Agreement for Field Experiences.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I just had a
Dorfin?
question. Do we use that beyond teaching experience? So I'm assuming that it's for student teachers, right? Is that correct, or is that something different?
Let me double check.
It doesn't specifically say in the contract. I read it. So I just,
Or was it for accounts?
I guess really my point is I'd like to see us use it everywhere, right? If they have
So
a,
we use it for school counselors, any professional staff is what we use it.
like if there's a, I know they have like a computer science program at Penn State locally. It would be cool if we could connect them, the nurse with the nurses and things like
Correct,
that.
yeah,
It'd
any
be neat to see if we
professional
could spread it.
staff, that opens the door for that.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Hildebrand,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Moran,
Yes.
Mr. Robeson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah.
Yes.
Mr. Acker,
Yes.
9-0.
Okay, we have some informational meeting, anything, any informational items? Any unfinished business? Any new business?
Well, other than Dr. Schaefer's Instagram and Facebook page, I mean, he's like a local celebrity
Oh,
now.
that's right.
It is nice to, is this working? It's nice to hear the feedback from the community. I don't think people realized how much we are doing and have done in the last 2.5 years. So I think it's generated a lot of positive buzz in the community. I just feel like the community feels more connected to what we're doing and the decisions that are being made. And it's, like I said, he's like a local celebrity now. So I think you hit, what, 1,100 followers? Is that true?
Almost 1,200.
Almost 1,200.
And the high school kids did win a parfait day because I did go into some classrooms and, said if we hit this goal, we get parfait day.
Well done.
Okay. In that case, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all.
Sorry.
It's almost over. Mario, how are you, pal? It's almost over. Another one of my players. You're hiring all my players. Please take care. Raid at Westside.